Dangerous war dog attacks. Everyone, until a little girl, changed everything. They said he was too broken to save. A war hero turned monster, but one tiny hand would prove them all wrong. His name was Shadow, and if you heard that name in any police station across the country, you'd see grown men take a step back. The German shepherd sat alone in the corner, muzzled, chained, his amber eyes burning with a rage that made even the bravest officers avoid eye contact. This wasn't just any police dog. This was a legend wrapped in fear. Once, he'd been a decorated hero, a soldier's best friend. But when his handler died overseas, blown apart by an explosion that Shadow survived, something inside him shattered. He stopped eating, started attacking. His bark became a warning that echoed through concrete walls like thunder before a storm. 5 transfers, 5 failures. Every trainer who tried to reach him ended up injured, traumatized, or both. The reports were clear: dangerous, unstable, beyond rehabilitation, but nobody wrote about the nights he howled until dawn, calling for a voice that would never answer. Captain Morgan stood behind the observation glass, arms crossed, jaw tight. "One more shot," he said quietly, "but if he attacks again, we're out of options." Everyone knew what that meant. Shadow wouldn't see another sunrise. They dragged him to an isolated cell at the back of the building. Steel doors slammed shut. Inside, Shadow paced like a caged storm, claws scraping concrete in an endless, haunting rhythm. Every footstep outside his door triggered a growl from deep within his chest. The scars on his face told stories his eyes refused to speak. A warrior without a war, a heart without a home. 3 weeks later, a woman walked through the station doors, holding her daughter's hand. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. Her husband had worked here once, before the war, before everything changed. "I just wanted to show my daughter where her daddy used to serve," she said softly. The little girl, Emma, barely 6 years old, squeezed her worn teddy bear and gazed around with wide, curious eyes. While the adults talked, Emma slipped away. Her footsteps led her down a narrow hallway toward a sound that most people feared, but to her, it was just sad. "Mommy, there are dogs here?" "Yes, sweetheart, but they're not pets. They're working dogs." Emma nodded, but her eyes stayed locked on that hallway. Behind the thick glass, Officer Jake Martinez watched Shadow, lying motionless, head between his paws. The file on his desk read, "Irredeemable." Jake had seen war dogs broken by combat, but none with eyes this hollow. Then Shadow's ears twitched. His nose began working overtime. Something in the air had shifted. The dog stood, tense, not aggressive, but listening, like he'd heard a ghost. Through the small window, Jake saw her, a little girl in a dress, staring at the cage with innocent wonder. Time froze. Shadow didn't growl, didn't bare his teeth. He just stared back, hypnotized. "Emma!" Sarah rushed forward. "Don't go near there." But Emma's small hand was already on the door handle. "Wait!" Jake burst from his office, boots pounding the floor. Too late. The door creaked open. Silence crashed over the kennel like a wave. Behind the bars, Shadow rose to his full height, muscles coiled, breath quick, eyes locked on the tiny figure who'd just entered his world. Jake's heart stopped. One wrong move could be fatal. "Don't move, sweetheart," he whispered, voice shaking. But Emma wasn't listening. She clutched her teddy bear, looking straight into the dog's eyes. "You're not mean," she said softly. "You're just hurting, aren't you?" Shadow blinked. His growl faded. Nobody had spoken to him like that since his handler died. No commands, no fear, just understanding. Emma took another step. Her shoes squeaked on the floor. "Look," she said, placing her teddy bear down. "He gets scared too sometimes. You can smell him if you want." Shadow stared at the toy, then at the child. Slowly he moved forward. One paw, then another. Officers pressed against the glass, holding their breath. Jake's hand hovered over his tranquilizer gun. Emma lifted her small hand and pressed it against the cold bars. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're a good boy." Shadow stopped. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, in a moment that defied everything they'd documented, everything they'd feared, Shadow lowered his head and gently pressed his muzzle against her tiny fingers. A whimper escaped him, soft, like a sob that had waited years to be released. Behind the glass, someone gasped, "That's impossible." Jake felt tears sting his eyes. He'd just witnessed something no training manual could explain. Shadow had given his trust. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He pulled Shadow's military file and found a photograph. A soldier smiling, helmet under his arm, kneeling beside a young German shepherd. Behind them, a woman holding a baby girl. The writing on the back made Jake's blood run cold. Shadow, Daddy's best friend, Emma, age 2. The little girl who touched the beast was his handler's daughter. Everything made sense. The sudden calmness, the recognition, the whimper Shadow hadn't forgotten. He'd been waiting. Weeks passed. Shadow transformed. He ate again, slept peacefully, responded to Emma's voice like it was music from another life. But one night, a violent thunderstorm tore through Riverdale. Lightning cracked. Thunder roared. Shadow's trauma returned in a flash. He panicked, broke free from his kennel, and vanished into the storm. Across town, Sarah's car died on a bridge. Rain hammered down. Then Emma saw him, Shadow, soaked, standing in the road. "He wants us to follow." "Emma, no." But the little girl was already running into the woods. The ground collapsed. Emma slipped toward a ravine. Shadow lunged, grabbing her jacket with his teeth, pulling with every ounce of strength. A massive tree crashed behind them. Shadow shielded her body, taking the impact. When Jake found them, Shadow was bleeding, collapsed, but his eyes were fixed on Emma, making sure she was still breathing. Months later, snow blanketed Riverdale. In the station courtyard, Shadow stood tall, a medal gleaming on his collar. Emma stood beside him, beaming. Captain Morgan spoke. "Today, we honor a hero who lost everything but found his way back through love." Jake placed his hand on Shadow's neck. "You found your home again, old friend." Sarah watched, tears streaming. His daddy would be so proud. He'd be proud. Shadow survived. Jake replied quietly. As the sun set, Emma sat on the steps, Shadow's head resting in her lap. Snow fell gently on the silver badge that marked him as family again. For the first time in years, Shadow's dreams weren't filled with explosions or screams, just the laughter of a child, the warmth of a home he thought he'd lost forever. "Welcome home, Shadow," Emma whispered. And the old soldier, at last, let go of his pain. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who believes in second chances, because sometimes the most broken souls just need one person to see past the scars. Thanks for watching, and remember, heroes come in all forms. See you in the next story.